trying to decide about the movie to watch. We're going to watch a film this semester, and then we're going to break it down using the model jump that we talked about last semester. Have you guys, we were thinking about the town.
Yeah.
How many people like the town? Yeah, I think it's a good drama. It's got a role of law in it. It's got a protagonist, right? You guys think that should be the film? Okay, so we're going to spend some time at lab. No, actually, we talked, Ashley, pardon me. How many people have seen Pulp Fiction? Right, how many people have not seen Pulp Fiction? All right, well, I have a responsibility to educate you guys. And if you haven't seen Pulp Fiction, I think, I mean, how can you get through undergrad and get through writing estimate?
It should be a progressive.
It should be. All right, then I'm sorry to say, I mean, I like the town, I like the idea, but I'm not going to say with that many people here who haven't seen Pulp Fiction. We're going to watch Pulp Fiction, all right? Pulp Fiction. So we're going to spend some time in labs, taking a look at it, is that right?
Yep.
And, it might be a good view. Is next week Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
Wow. So it might be something you want to take a look at. It's really a fun movie. How many people have seen it? Again, it's fun. Do you think it's fun?
Yeah.
I mean, it is hyper-violent, so I'm hoping that... But man, actually, the violence in it is funny. I mean, that's what gets me. Remember when Marcellus Wallace is walking across in front of Butch? And Butch is singing... William Salvage here, the deck of 50 cars, whatever.
Yeah.
And then Marcellus Wallace is like, Marcellus Wallace wants to kill him, and you're going to find out why he wants to kill him, right? And Butch throws on the accelerator at the little Honda, that he had to wreck that Honda, honey, right? Later on, and then Marcellus Wallace, and then he crashes the car. Marcellus Wallace is kind of teetering, and he pulls out a gun, and he starts shooting in his direction. And the lady, the bystander that gets shot in the hip, she falls down screaming. I can't stop laughing there. I don't know what it is. It's a non-traditional story form. It was nominated for Best Picture in, I think, 93. And it changed cinema, okay? So let's watch Pulp Fiction. Is that cool? All right. Now, we've cut you guys all kinds of slack, have we not? Tell me how we've cut you slack recently. So the commercial, the next assignment is a storyboarding commercial, right? And it's not due until the week after Thanksgiving. So we're giving you 2 extra weeks on it? No, that can't be true. Is it?
Yeah.
Wow. I was feeling awfully Franciscan that day, wasn't I? Just give freebie, have Merry Christmas. Okay, so the TV commercial is due the week after lab. What about lab this week? Who canceled it? What? Who? I wasn't even here that day. No, I'm just teasing. So no lab on Friday? Well, let's assume you guys are watching some Pulp Fiction, okay? How about that? Right? I want you to get Pulp Fiction and over break, get with your friends and say, Dr. McKelson says this is good. Let's check it out, okay? Is that cool? Then we'll be way ahead of the game. Because even as we watch Pulp Fiction in class, we're probably going to have to break it up because...
It's got to go to 3.
Yeah, did you guys talk about your final project this Friday? Yeah, you guys did. You got a lot of options. Well, what I would like to do today is I'm going to suggest that some of you may want to do a short issue film. Because what are the final project options? Well, first of all, who gets to decide what the final project is? You do. And who gets to decide what it's then not only what genre it's in, but what is it about? Who decides that? Wow. So does the content of this course interest you? Well, I hope so. Don't pick anything that bores you. And how about a documentary about NASCAR, man? Tell me why I should like NASCAR. So it seems like a bunch of guys driving around in a circle. I mean, maybe that's just me, but did the Bears win yesterday? No. Okay. But they're still in a playoff run, right? Who'd they lose to? Anybody from Texas? Anyways, it's like the most regressive state of the union. I mean, Austin's really cool, but the rest of the state, man. Cowboy boots and cowboy hats. How many people like wearing cowboy boots and cowboy hats here? Okay, all right. I respect that. I mean, when I'm in Oklahoma, I have a couple cowboy hats I wear. I'm probably have pictures on my phone. What are you writing? Your name. Well, tell me where we're at. Where were we at last Wednesday? Seems like we were kind of wrapping up documentary, right? And that's probably going to be connected to commercials in one way. And there's one of the options. Tell me what are the options? What are you guys choosing for an option to do for your final project? You're doing what? Documentaries. You're going to do a treatment. And we talked about what a treatment is. What does a treatment have in it? Yeah, it first has a title, then it has a log line. What's a log line? 1 sentence description of whatever it is I'm going to write about. That's right. You guys know, I mean, there's a management company right now that I keep talking to that might represent me in Los Angeles, and they really like my television series, which is an hour-long drama. Here's the log line. An hour-long drama on the trials and tribulations of patients and staff members in a chemical rehab center in the Midwest. Right? Kind of like ER meets intervention, or Grey's Anatomy meets celebrity rehab. And then they wanted a tag from me, which took me a week to write. How many people like that show about the fantasy in like where people were just like, I've never seen this show. Huh? No. It's about like fairy tales that are in my what? Is it? Huh? Once upon a time, yeah. And what's the tagline for it? Taglines are like, the magic starts, the magic began, or something. Jaws, just when you thought it was safe to go in the water. Alien, no one can hear you scream. They wanted a tag, and I could not figure one out. Like, it's called Last Days into Normal, actually, which the Hollywood producer helped me with the name a little bit, but finally, after a week, I came up with Last Days into Normal, recovery starts here. That took me a week to write that one sentence. Must have talked to 15 people about it. But often what we have first is our log line, which is what? Again, right. And then you may say, in your proposal, I want to do a campaign for a new scent. It's called Campfire. Me and a friend of mine hung out by a campfire on Saturday night, and then we went out to the loft to play pool, and we smelled like campfire all night. We were talking about, like, making it a cologne, you know what I mean? Camp. For that rustic scent. Maybe you want to do a whole PR campaign on a new product. Camp. You know? It's got a rugged smell. You know what I mean? You might want to do a whole PR campaign. Are you PR people? Who are you? Think about your dream job and write a campaign for them, which would be like a press release where, I don't know, who's somebody that's out in the forest a lot. Smokey the Bear does a press conference for your product. Who's a big famous camper? I don't know. Bear Grylls. Okay, Bear Grylls is going to release your product at 2 o'clock in Chicago. So you could have like a press conference. And so you write a inverted pyramid press release, right? And maybe a feature press release, and then maybe a script, a couple television spots, we'll call them. Maybe put together a fact sheet, put together a packet if you're going to do a PR thing. And imagine, again, I dare you to dream what you want to be in 10 years. Because you may not achieve that, but if you work towards it, you're going to get you're going to get someplace really interesting, right? You get what I'm saying? What am I saying? Yeah, what the heck, man? Where'd you hear that? Okay. Rock out to your life. That sounds good. I mean, if you shoot for the stars, you may land on the moon, right? At least I'll take it and twist that up a little bit, right? So So on your final project, imagine what your job would be in 10 years. And you can get, it's amazing what you can do when you set yourself goals. If I'm feeling listless, don't know where you're going, have a 10-year goal. And then start working towards it. Right? So you could do a PR campaign in your final project. What else can you do for your final project? You're going to do a documentary treatment, which is a log line, a what? What's next? Oh, look at your notes, guys. A synopsis. And what is a synopsis? What is a synopsis? Sorry. What is it? I want this treatment even if you do the PR campaign. First line, I'm going to do a campaign about a new scent camp. Synopsis. In this PR campaign, we're going to introduce this new scent. And in order to do that, we're going to have a press conference, an inverted pyramid press release, a feature press release, some fact sheets, and 2 television commercials. Right? Is that a 50-word synopsis? Yes? And then what do you do after that? In a treatment. Let's say, particularly a documentary. What's next?
3 to 5 pages of exactly how and what you want to write about.
Yeah, a narrative description of exactly what the story is going to be. And if you're doing a PR campaign, 3 to 5, just in narrative form, tell us what each piece is going to be. Does that make sense? Have 2 paragraphs about your press conference, which should be at 2 o'clock in the middle of the week in order to maximize your news coverage. You'll learn that later in PR. And then talk about, in 2 sentences, each your inverted pyramid press release, your feature press release, and then your commercials. Did you guys get this? What else can you do for your final project? Yeah, you can write an episode of the TV and say, Once Upon a Time. So what it's called? Yeah, you can write an episode for that. Or anything you want. Trailer Park Boys. Somebody write an episode of Trailer Park Boys. Where they sell lemonade laced with LSD one day after the trailer park.
It'd be really easy to just make that shit up.
Yeah, or what else can you do? Yeah, Walking Dead, man. Write an episode. I mean, when I was pitching my idea to the guy at HBO, he said, okay, here's what you need to do. You need to write a spec script for a pre-existing TV show. And that'll show that you can write. And he said, what show do you like? I said, Breaking Bad. He said, write up a spec script for Breaking Bad, which is something you're going to want to do sometime. Right? And if that's good, then you can get a job out of that. Okay? You can do a spec script for, and you just write your whole story of the hour, 15-minute episode, and then give us 8 to 12 pages of script. Okay? What else can you do for your final project? Yes? Yeah, you make them really sharp, right? Okay, I'll buy that. Doesn't sound very, but yeah, it doesn't sound very ambitious. But yes, you can definitely do that. What else? Come on, you want to write the film? You always want to write. Who's got a film idea? Nobody's ever wanted to write a film yet? This would be a chance to flesh it out. You'd have a long line, 1 sentence, 50-word synopsis, and then in 2 to 5 pages, write out exactly what happens in the whole film, and then write 8 to 10 pages of sample script. Maybe the first 10 pages. Cool? All right, one of those options, also you can create a short issue film. Now what I'm going to do is, I want to finish up talking about documentary, and then I want to start talking about commercials, because this little short issue film that you may join with other people and do, and you can do it for your final project. I need this. It's better like the crack at 6:30 this morning. I'm writing this update on Frank at Park Avenue, right? Update of Francis. You know how many books I've been writing about Francis? A lot, and I can't stop researching this research loop. And you guys know that I have the movie right here. But last night I was thinking about what it was like to be captive of the Taliban. Because Frank, he went to jail for a year in a war. What movie would you guys tell me to see to figure out what it's like to be a captive of the Taliban? Okay, maybe Iron Man is not a bad idea. I mean, you know, he's in a cave and everything. Just saying. Okay, well, you know, my copy of it is up down in the cabinet on almost Thanksgiving. Maybe I'll take a look at it. I was in the video store. Somebody mentioned Brothers. How many people have seen that? It's got Natalie Portman, Prince Amandala in it, and it's got Tobey Maguire and Jake they could almost be brothers, couldn't they? I mean, it's a little weepy for me, but it does have good coverage of being in a prison camp. So I was doing research too late. But we were talking about documentaries, and we can go way past all of this, right? What I want to say is, where were we at with documentaries? Weren't we talking about logging? What is logging? Okay, you're working on a documentary about the softball team, right? Is that right? Okay, so what do you do? During the season, what do you do? Yeah. But if you're making a documentary about it, what are you doing? Yeah, and filming, let me just give you a good, that's incorrect. At this point, you call it shooting. And, I hate to be like that, but I was a professional video producer, and I came out of NYU where we would film. But they don't film now, do they? Do they even tape now? Do they tape? No, what do? They shoot, because now it's going straight onto the hard drive a lot of the time, right? So you're shooting footage while you're on the team. What is logging then? So I come back and I got a hard drive full of a bunch of video clips. What is logging? Yes, ma'am.
It's like you go minute by minute and describe what happens in each scene.
That's right. Minute by minute, explain what happens in each scene. So that you can find the money shots. I mean, you guys, what is money shot? I mean, at least you should come out of here knowing what a money shot is. What's a money shot? What am I saying? It's vernacular when I say money shot. The best shot, say it loud. You can't. That guy right back there, what's your name? Adam can't hear you.
The shot that makes the cut.
The shot that makes the cut. That's a great way to put it. The money shot. And in the Joe Amrine film, what's the money shot? Him walking out of prison. Man, I had to be there. Even the shot's a little shaky. But I had to have that shot, right? That's the money shot, all right? And so when I'm logging that, I'm like, here it is, going to use it. Okay, load that right in the computer, save it as a little file, say, Joe walks out, right? Then I go back to my script, and I put right in that spot, Joe walks out. Remember, this is a circular process. I shoot it, I log it, I save the clip, then I go back to that script, and I put exact words that I save the clip under. Why do I do it like that? What use is the script then, later on? What use is the script later on if it has the exact, I'm talking to you, I'm asking you. What use does the script have if later on the exact name of the clip is identified in the script?
You gotta find the exact thing you want or what time you want to show it.
Yeah, so it's clear to the editor. So when the editor is going, well, what shot's next? He merely looks at the script and says, Joe walks out. Then he goes to the files of all the little clips. He goes, here, Joe walks out. Takes it, drops it in the timeline right at that spot as described by the script, right? But what's unique about the documentary script? How is it different from all the other scripts you do? Yes?
Is it kind of reversed, so it's written essentially after you put it?
Yeah, at least it's recursive. I start with what do I start with? A wish list of all the shots I wish I had. Then I go out and shoot, right? But then as I get the shots that I want and I'm going to use, I put those and slot those into my wish list. And the wish list, thus, in this recursive process, becomes the script of the documentary. Right? You understand? Okay, it's over. Oh, shit. Okay, I thought you guys were rude. Well, it's up there. Wish list. Okay, great. And then after that, go to the next thing. We're talking log sheets. Go ahead. We've already talked about treatment. SOT list. Particularly, this is like logging, but it's particularly useful. This is where we have people saying things, right? And we know, this is where Ferguson said he wasn't even there, okay? And we note that. Then that's a money shot. I'm going to use that. We save that under a label. Then we go back to the script and we change it. All right, next thing is B-roll. And we talked a little bit about this. It's also called, put down B-roll. It's also called inserts or cutaways. You know where Errol Morris is work? Errol Morris. Yeah, he made the Ghost of Botham Grave, and he made won the Academy Award for The Fog of War. Anybody know Errol Morris? It's not just people in Massachusetts. He may come for the documentary film festival. Again, he won the Academy Award in 2004 for Fog of War about McNamara and the Vietnam War. He's the king of cutaways. What is a cutaway? What's B-roll? Help me out again. Does anybody remember what B-roll is? We've talked about it. Yes, ma'am.
Shots of things that aren't actuality.
Yeah. Shots of things that aren't actualities. That's good. Let's say we got a guy and he's being interviewed. Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention? You have someone you're interviewing. It's a juror. He says, I really hated it when we got him from the juror's box and we had to go back in that room to make a decision. You got him on camera and he's talking. What I don't want, what are the 4 structural considerations? Variety. Well, that's it, variety. Do I just want talking heads in my documentary? No. So when he says, I hated when we were sitting in the jurors section and we got up to go back in that room to make a decision. What can I show there? Using his sound on tape as then voice. He's on screen. We see him talking, right? Does everybody understand that? Now I can use his voice as voiceover, and I can show you another picture while the audience continues to hear him. What can I show right there? The jurors leaving the box, or even the jury box empty, to a pan of the door that they walked through to make the decision. You know, so he says, I really hated it. When we got it from the jury box, we had to go back in that room and make the decision. I just didn't feel comfortable, and I think we made the wrong choice. Well, what you do is then cut back to him speaking at the end of the clip. You see what I'm saying? And that thing that you inserted is called an insert. Or it is also called a B-roll. And that's because, man, when I was at NYU, we had 2 films. The A and the B film. And when we went to the place to put them together, the processing place had to put the 2 things together. So that's why it's called B-roll. It's also called cutaway because why? Explain why it would call cutaway. It explains it. Yes?
But you're cutting away from the person that's talking.
Right. I mean, if somebody is talking about the murder weapon, you know, the murder weapon was found on the floor of the center. What can I cut away to from? The lawyer said, well, they found the murder weapon, but it didn't have anybody else's DNA on it. It didn't have fingerprints. What can I cut away to? Yeah, how about the shiv that we made? It's now in my office. If you want to see what a real shiv looks like, come to my office. That's opening up my VIP passes to the bunch of film festivals. Anyways, we can cut away to it. You see what I'm saying? That's why it's called a cutaway. Why do we want to use cutaways on B-roll or also what it's called? Inserts? Why do we use that? Variety. Last thing you want is your documentary to be a collection of talking heads, right? It's not visually interesting. It bores us. So then, what you're doing is through the script, you're trying to figure out what can we show at this point. If they say the state of Missouri started this little town by Mineral Point, Missouri, and they called it Potosi Prison, what can I show right there? The prison. I'm a sucker for maps. You know what I mean? Like, if somebody says someplace and they talk about where it's at, I love to show it's. The question is, what am I going to use for B-roll? What are you going to use for B-roll? At the end of the process, especially writing a documentary, you're like, what's B-roll? Where can we get more B-roll? Where can we find more B-roll? Somebody say something that we can show a picture of it. Errol Morris, who won that Academy Award in 2004, is a master of B-roll. I mean, he'd say, I was working at Cornell, and what we did was we were trying to figure out, he was the president of Ford. How do you package eggs? How do you package eggs? And he was thinking about that. Because if you drop an egg, it doesn't always break because that one's packaged. So we were thinking forward, how can we package human like an egg in an egg carton so they wouldn't die? And so at Cornell, we would take human skulls and wrap them up, and we'd drop them in different ways. We'd drop them down the stairs to see how we could protect a human skull from getting crushed. Well, what B-roll do you go to there? dropping skulls down the stairs, and it doesn't have to be Cornell. That's the thing, is that if, you know, Errol Morris is the master of B-roll, man. You might be, you hear somebody on a tape. Somebody's on a taped conversation on the phone, okay? And he's talking to a guy. Errol Morris made a movie called The Thin Blue Line that was really influential to me because it helped the guy get off in Texas. Man, they love putting people in Texas. Man, there was a guy in Texas that was mentally fit. He was psychologically disabled. So they got him on his right meds so they could execute him while he wasn't mentally ill. Like, they thought it was inhumane to execute somebody that was mentally ill. So in order to execute him, they got his meds right so he would be sane when they executed him. Texas, they'll go to any length, man. Anyways, the point is, Errol Morris, he would have a conversation, and the sound on tape we would hear would be him talking to the guy that really did it. Him talking to the guy that really did it. But then he would cut to a close-up of a tape recorder playing. What do we know about editing? Does the tape recording play that he's shooting have to be the one that was used for the interview? No. Does the sound have to be coming from that tape recorder? Does that tape recorder have to have anything to do with the actual conversation and taping the conversation? No, it doesn't. But if we show a picture of that tape recorder, what do people do? Naturally, they assume. It's Gestalt psychology. They'll fill in the blanks for you. And he's a master of knowing what to throw on the screen to give visual variety that makes sense to the viewer. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay, cool. You guys know all about B-roll, right? All right. Go ahead, scratch tracks. Now, when I say my stuff goes over hundreds of revisions, I'm not just giving you malarkey. For the Joe Amrine thing, the voiceover written for Danny Glover, how many times did we rewrite it? Huh? 50? It's a good guess. And then you know what we did? We had Dr. Lippert read our voiceover and recorded it on the documentary. And then you know what we did? We showed it to you guys with a scratch track on it. Dr. Lippert doing the voiceover that Danny Glover would do. And then we showed it to you guys. And then you know what I asked you guys? Guess what? What did I ask? What would I ask? Yes.
How can it be better?
Exactly. How can it be better? And ultimately, what's the most important consideration? Okay, yeah. Repeat after him. What is the most important consideration? Clarity. So, I needed you guys, a class like you, to tell me where it wasn't clear, where you needed more of it, where it was confusing. Do you understand what I'm saying? And then you guys, as part of some assignment, you guys wrote on it, it needs to be better right here, or 20 minutes in, or 30 minutes in. And then I took all of that feedback, and guess what I did? Revise. That's right. You see what I'm saying? Is when we say revise and write, we're not just saying it. We mean it. So then I was able to take your feedback from a scratch track. A scratch track, what is a scratch track? Define that for me. You in the beautiful white hat with the black bow. What is a scratch track? Okay, somebody's got it. What's a scratch track? It's a throwaway voiceover where you put it on there for it to see how it's going to work. And then you're going to get rid of it later. Dr. Lippert always gives me crap. He's like, I can't believe you got rid of my voiceover. I went with Danny Glover. Don't you know I'm way better than him? Right? This is kind of a joke. But do you guys understand what a scratch track is? It's me getting Lippert to put a track on it, then I run it for a test audience, which was you, and then I revise based on your suggestions. You see, revising, rewriting isn't just this word, a saying. I mean, I'm not just saying it, I mean it, I live it, I love it. I have to do it. And that became the 52nd revision of that voiceover. But man, again, you go into Hollywood or to New York, or rent a studio for $2,200 an hour, you got a limo to pick up Mr. Danny Glover, whose time, on SAG, I don't know how much we got him just wave SAG, but he was worth thousands of dollars. Don't I want it to be the best it can be? And how do I do that? How do I make it the best it can be? Revise, and then rewrite, and revise and rewrite, right? At least you guys know I'm not just some teacher that talks the talk, right? And I don't think I'm all that. I know I'm fat, I'm an idiot, I don't know enough of your guys' names, I can be an asshole, all that's true. But I'm not stuck on myself. I've made mistakes. I make them all the time. And mostly, you know when I make them? When I don't revise and rewrite enough. You know what I mean? And I hope you guys appreciate that. Don't think I'm stuck on myself. I'm just sharing you the learning experience so that maybe you guys don't make the same mistakes, so it doesn't take you as long to make the mistakes I made. You know? Okay, go ahead. Next. Dramatic recreation. I already talked about this being an active, didn't I? So last thing I talked about, making a ship, which I did read. I wasn't just watching, but I was reading about Francis. Man, some of those first guys that said, people were burned at the stake for saying, we want to own no property. We think Jesus didn't own property, so we don't want to own property. And several guys were burned at the stake for saying that. So remember, just breathe the fumes in, because your blood boil hurts a lot. But I talked also about one of the most important things I talked about is making a ship, right? And one of the dramatic recreations that I have, what's a ship? Shank. Should be extra credit. You know? 2 extra credit questions. What about the final? One, if you're burned at the stake, what's the least painful way to go? And secondly, what is a ship? How to make one? It's an excellent question, okay. But I made that dramatic recreation of the ship. Then there was some other dramatic recreation. It was the last thing I said in class. What was it? Come on, somebody remembers? Yes?
You said you lit papers on fire, filmed papers on fire.
I did. The editor, assistant director, and one of the other producers, and he was the assistant editor, they did. I was sleeping at that 3 a.m. period. They shot destroying of documents, and then they wanted to keep it in, and I didn't like it. Because we didn't even know that he burned the documents. We didn't know how he was destroyed. He may have just thrown it in the garbage can. Because in the investigation, they'd take everybody's accounts, then they would make one account where they all fit together and get rid of the originals. Do you guys think that's ethical, to include that burning document? Yeah, I still question it, but it was only 2 seconds. So, and a lot, again, all writing is a collaborative effort. What does that mean? And all, especially filmmaking. What does that mean? Yeah, what does collaborative effort mean? Filmmaking is collaborative effort. What does it mean?
Me.
No, you.
Oh.
Yeah, you. Yeah, you got it.
Oh,
And
did
when
you
you're on
say-
colorblind, you got like a blue, purple sweater on.
It means that multiple people are on that project working together.
Right, multiple people on there say should be considered. A director is a dictator, but he should be a benevolent dictator. So I included the shot just kind of out of deferment to their opinion. I think it pushed an ethical boundary. Have you guys seen those documentary quote-unquote shows where it's all recreation? The cool thing about Aaron Morris when he made Thin Blue Light is he did 19 recreations, all of which were different people's opinions, from their viewpoints. And he never showed a recreation of how it may have actually gone down. What's the Rashomon effect? Yeah, somebody remembers it. You in the white shirt.
Isn't it like seeing the same thing from different perspectives?
That's right. It's seeing the same things from different perspectives. This could be a Red Thunder, which is Aldi's version of this product. But you don't know. But he knows for sure what it is. Right? And at that point, it could be, you don't know, maybe he knows. There are some iconic, but depending on your view of things, you're going to see it differently. That's Rashomon effect. Aaron Morris only did people's versions, not what actually could have happened. Okay? So I don't know, ethical recreation. Now, the other side of the coin, look, there weren't a lot of cell phones at the Battle of Waterloo where Napoleon almost ultimately defeated, you know. Trying to get footage for that, I've tried, it's hard. Right? So, what are you going to do about historical stuff? Yeah, man, I mean, you know, there are some ways around it. Civil War by Ken Burns uses photographs. Then he actually layers the photographs, so when he does a move, it was 3D. But he used a lot of moves on historical photographs. Although his documentary, Thomas Jefferson, he did do dramatic recreations. What are you going to do, man? Again, there's no convenience store security footage of Thomas Jefferson. So, you know, you're going to have to do some dramatic recreation. At least know there's ethical dilemmas with that. You guys understand that? Okay, cool. Next thing is chronology. That can be a way to organize your documentary. We a little bit did that. I mean, I think that, certainly in the film that you saw about Joe Ramrine, there is a protagonist with a woman want, a guy that doesn't want to tell you complications he faces. But then what we kind of did was go back and do a timeline of the actual events in order to increase people's understanding of what happened. So chronology can be a way to go. Okay? Although, blank this out for a second. There's a great documentary, I think it's called Spellbound. Anybody know what it's about? Yes.
Is that about the spelling bee?
It's about the spelling bee. That's right. And they found the kids that are like the top 10 spelling bee people in the world. And they got the winner. Okay? Well, at the beginning of the film, what they show is we meet 10 kids. And we find out about their daily lives and about how they study and how they interact with their friends. Then we go to the contest. And these 10 people surface as the 10 finalists, and then one of them wins. It has the verisimilitude of chronology. That's the word for the day. Anybody know what it means? It means, yes?
The same effect as?
The same effect as? That's really close. The appearance of reality. Verisimilitude, I think your definition is really close. You know, it is. The appearance. Because here's what they did, ladies and gentlemen. They shot the spelling bee. They watched the 10 people who won. They watched the winner. And then you know what they did? Go ahead, raise your hand, say it. Yes, they shot their daily lives after. You guys see? And they kind of edited out. They only edited stuff where they were studying for the next year's spelling bee or their interaction. But the way they edited it, it gave the verisimilitude of chronology. Do you get it? You see what I'm saying? And you see how powerful editing is? They waited for the spelling bee. They found out the top 10. They got the winner. Then they went back and shot their daily lives, them studying their interactions. But they edited it with the verisimilitude of, we shot these people and knew that before the spelling bee. Right? So bring back that up. So they created the impression of chronology, although that's the power of editing. Do you guys realize? You see what I'm saying? And the first time I watched the movie, I didn't realize that they're doing it. I'm like, how the hell did they pick the 10 winners? Right? How did they know which 10 people out of the 400 kids that are in the spelling bee were going to be the ones that were top 10? Boy, they were lucky. They must have shot 300 kids, the best spellers in the world, and then shot all of them, and then luckily, the 10 that won and the one that won, they luckily had footage of that one. See what I'm saying? It's like, wait a minute. And I went back and watched it. And it's like the stuff they included. You see, that's Gestalt psychology. Our brain makes the sense of things that we need it to make sense. You know what I mean? We fill in the blanks. So because they put the footage there before that other footage, I thought they met him before the spelling bee. Yeah, was it ethical? I don't see any ethical problem there.
I was deceived.
Yeah, but sometimes they didn't lie to you. They didn't say, we promised this footage was shot. I mean, you know, there's problems, man. Anybody see Bowling for Columbine? Okay, you saw it. There's a shot where, there's a sequence where Michael Moore is just given 10 Commandments. Charlton Heston just giving him hell. And there's a shot where Charlton Heston just walks back into his house. And he's like, I'm not going to be in this interview. He walks back into his house. Well, as he's walking, it cuts back to Michael Moore that says, and Michael Moore's calling after him, don't you care about the kids? And Heston keeps walking. And it cuts back to Heston. He says, sir, just answer my questions if you care about the kids. Then it cuts back to Charlton Heston walking and going in his house. Well, there was only one camera there. So what they had to do was shoot Charlton Heston going in his house. And then they turned the camera around and they had Michael Moore going, sir, why don't you answer my questions? Sir, don't you care about the kids? Sir. And then they edited it together to look like he was saying that stuff as Charlton Heston was walking away. You understand what I'm saying? And that can be argued unethical, right? Or were they trying to take the bullets back to Kmart because they were lodged in these two kids still? And the irises were wide open. And then they get on the car like they're gorillas and they run into the place. And the irises, which is how much light you have that gets in your camera, were set to be in the building. What they did was they went in the building first and set their irises down, went back to the car, and acted like they were just getting out of the car with the cameras. Does that make sense? It's the illusion, okay? And ethical, it's full with ethical quandaries. I don't know if it's right or wrong. You know? Ends justify the means. I don't know. Sometimes it does, sometimes it might not. Bring up the next thing. Go to emotional intensity. Emotion intensity. What's the best way to get emotion intensity in an audience, guys? Drama. And music can be good too. And I'm kind of underestimating the power of music in a documentary. And you got to have a soundtrack. And a good guy, great guy did that for us. What's next? So use drama. So that's documentary, okay? Now this is important. Again, I already told you, how many people are PR? Okay, you're going to do this. You might talk about the development of your new scent, smoke. You know, and how people yearn for that smoky smell. It makes them think of summer vacations on at Cap Wadakubi or whatever. You know, the first time they kissed a girl. Or it makes them think about hanging out with their grandpa. Or it gives men a rugged smell. I mean, I'm not saying the scent's actually really good, but you guys remember when Kramer came up with Beach? But anyways, Calvin Klein stole it. Well, you might want to do a little documentary about camp if you're working for Estee Lauder or whatever. Whatever your product is. Whatever your good or service is, right? I mean, again, if I was VP, I would make documentaries about how our people and people that are being supported with our money are cleaning up the poor birds that were affected by the oil spill, right? So documentaries can be used in PR. And that's the biggest thing you saw in the documentary I showed you, is that we can only get 200 people to see it in St. Louis. But if we handed a press kit to the reporters in St. Louis, the TV reporters, hand a press kit to the newspaper reporters, to the radio reporters, how many people could then hear our message? Thousands, tens of thousands. I mean, it was like one of the main stories on the 5, 6, and 10 o'clock news in St. Louis. What's the population of St. Louis? I try to avoid St. Louis as much as possible, but but there's East St. Louis and there's St. Louis. It's gigantic. And what is that when you make a press kit and you send out a media release? What is that called? Public relations. What is the definition of public relations? How many people are public relations? Just one? The number of when I ask for a definition of what it is, the number of students who are PR goes down. Yeah?
Well, in my public relations class, we basically had a huge activity that said there's no set definition of public relations anymore.
Okay, well, I usually use the Michigan State definition. How about when an organization, an institution, or an individual communicates to respected publics? Sounds like a valid one. Okay, so documentaries can be used, for public relations effort. And you saw all that. I mean, the media is your primary, then your audience. And I'll give you a hint. This is on the final. What is the target audience called in public relations? Write it down. Put a star by it. He said this was going to be on the test. We'll talk about it again. But what is your target audience called when we talk about public relations? It's called the public. Write that down. It's kind of weird. I don't know why but it is a public. And media, I think, is one of the most important publics. Because if you want to get your message out to a giant audience, the mass media is going to do that for you. We talk about PR, we're going to talk about making media's job easy as possible is the key to reaching them as a public. Alright? Man, look, I can go into it, but I'm going to wait to the PR lecture. I think PR has changed the world in tremendously wonderful ways. I mean, we live in a democracy because of public relations. It's all about the people that wanted the democracy, wanted to throw off the yoke of King George III, that Thomas Paine, who's Thomas Paine? Okay, what? Raise your hand. He wrote Common Sense. This is the time that will try men's souls. This is not the time for the summer soldier or the fair weather patriot. This is the time when we have to stand up for our rights as free individual human beings with the God-given gift of freedom and the power to speak out. He wrote a pamphlet called Common Sense, disseminated all over the place after 1776. It motivated and inspired the desire to fight the Revolutionary War and throw off the yoke of the British. You know what it was? Public relations. It was a pamphlet. It was a pamphlet. It was public relations. Public relations can change the world, right? But this is what I need you guys to do, okay? For Wednesday, what I want to do is I do want to get on this commercial idea because the assignment is going to be due Friday after we get back. So don't go home. Come on, you got like 2 weeks. It's too long you're going to be home. So come to class on Wednesday, all right? What I need you to do is just look, write this down. Look in the chapter on scripting the visual at storyboards, and then read the chapter on advertisements. And maybe Wednesday's a good time to have a quiz in here. What do you think? Maybe? Well, let's see. Okay? Not a lot of people are here will help with this. And depending on how our conversation goes about what? We're going to talk about what? Storyboards. And then secondly, we're going to talk about what? And really it's spots. We're entering a new world. Documentary is a great way to communicate our message because you have power. You focus people's attention with documentary. It's a documentary project meeting this Wednesday at 5:15 in Fel 162. You guys have a great week. Let's talk advertising on Wednesday. Notice some commercials between now and then if you're watching.